Welcome back to the AI Minds podcast. This is a podcast where we explore the companies of tomorrow being built AI first. I'm your host, as always, Demetrios, and this episode, like every episode, is brought to you by Deepgram, the #1 speech-to-text and text-to-speech API on the internet today, trusted by the world's top enterprises, conversational AI leaders, startups, and some of them you may have actually heard of, like Spotify, Twilio, NASA, and Citibank. I have the pleasure today of being joined by Dan, who is head of automation at Deepgram and recently came out with Vibe Coder. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you all about vibe coding today. As you know, it might be the top buzzword of 2025. I think it's close competition between MCP and vibe coding. I have fully changed my title on LinkedIn to be a vibe manager because I manage the good vibes only. But I want to know about you and your journey into tech. I know that you started in product, and just give me like a little background.
Yeah, sure. So, uh, went to Coast Guard Academy in college and thought I wanted to be a naval architect. Realized naval architecture jobs in Michigan, where I wanted to live, are kind of few and far between. So I had to pivot once I got out of the military, and went and got my MBA. Pivoted fully into business, and thought that's what I wanted to do. Um, did management consulting for a while. We can talk about that. That's a fun topic. But post that, that really gave me my opportunity to dive into tech, and I actually started on the hardware side, where I joined and got the startup bug working for a small satellite design company that was designing synthetic aperture radar satellites. And I knew nothing about synthetic aperture radar satellites, but I'm always eager to learn. I'm a big believer in the growth mindset, which we'll definitely talk about later when it comes to
Yes.
vibe coding. Um, but from there, got the startup bug. Never wanted to go back to a big corporation. And so one thing led to another, and I was able to worm my way into Deepgram, and started as a product manager. Quickly shifted over to program manager because we needed some help on that front,
Hmm.
based on my prior experience. And then got an opportunity to be the chief of staff for a year, and now I've recently transitioned over to the head of automation role, where my mission is to make Deepgram the most productive and efficient company in the world using AI tools, and kind of exploring the the innovation that's coming out every day on and the opportunities that's being presented there.
Well, I know from the inside how much the teams and the folks at Deepgram are creating workflows with AI. I know that you've got wild ideas on different things that we can do. Do you have a intuition on why that is, that we are so AI native per se?
I think Deepgram, first and foremost, we hire fundamentally curious people. That's a big part of our hiring process. Is are people willing to learn and try the latest things on their own time, on company time? Doesn't matter. Like, what is the most effective way to do the job? We hire people who have strong opinions, loosely held. And so, if something new comes along that does the job better, generally speaking, we shift to it and we adopt it, if we think it's valuable. And there's no ego. There's no like, this is the way we do it. No, like, let's figure out the best way to do things and make our customers the happiest customers on the planet, and we'll go from there.
What are some automations that either you have implemented or you've seen other teams implementing that you've been really excited about?
So I think when it comes to automations, it's hard to just sit down and be like, I want to automate my job away, right? Like, no one wants to actually automate their job away, first of all. So you have to be careful around the messaging there, because the idea is not to replace humans, it's to augment humans. And so I kind of nitpick at the word automation, really. I really view it as augmentation. How can we make ourselves more effective using these AI tools and remove some of the tedious, boring work, and enhance our own abilities and skills with these tools? And in doing so, now you're not only are you having a lot more fun at your job, which is 100% the case for me, but now you're also delivering a better experience for your customers and making your company more successful. And at the same time. Um, but specifically, I think the biggest for us, when you sitting down and looking at it, there's just so much opportunity to automate. You can kind of get lost, and so you just got to start with the low hanging fruit. There's low hanging fruit, and then there's these big long shots. And start with something small, get a quick win, and once you do that, then you can build a momentum. You can kind of prove to the organization this is something that's worth spending time on, and then from there, you can start working on those long shots. Like I have this crazy idea that if we do this X Y Z, then here's the benefit, but it's going to take time to justify. And maybe the tools aren't there yet, but they're heading that direction, and we can get proof of concept and stuff. But it's never a good idea to just sit down and only do that or only do low hanging fruit. You need both, I think, to really
Uh-huh.
show and kind of get to the potential automation. To be clear, we're just starting on that journey. Like we're already a very, very efficient company, but I think there's a lot that we can do and a lot of the that we can tap into to become even more efficient and productive without, placing an additional burden on our employees.
One that I've set up for myself is from these podcasts, how do we capture insights of Deepgram users and then turn it into a case study
Mhm.
from what folks say on the podcast, and automating that journey has been my kind of like fun side project to create.
Yeah. So that's an amazing use case. When I sit down, I think about the amount of information that's just contained in Slack, right? Like you have this institutional knowledge that's in unstructured format within these Slack channels, or within company meetings. You record everything, hook it all up to a vector database, yeah, and start to just explore like what can you do? What are the different pipelines you can set up? We have an amazing team in our revenue operations side of things that has set up automations around external phone calls, ex, you know, plugging those transcripts using our technology, of course, dog fooding as much as possible, plugging that into our an LLM based workflow that can then analyze each call, identify the product line that's associated with, identify challenges, risks, opportunities with each customer, get some great product feedback automatically, and then summarize it all and post it in Slack. And that's
Mm,
something that you used to have to do manually. You had to set
yes.
aside time, like, all right, I'm going to take an hour every day to look at the recordings and see, and then write up a report. Now it's just done, and you can uh, you know, there's downsides here too, right? Like, let's be realistic. You can get information overload. So you need a really
Yeah,
effective way of triaging all those so that they just don't get dumped into a Slack channel and
and
then
nobody reads them.
nobody reads them and someone asks the question anyways on Slack, right? Like, so there's a balance here. I mean, I'm bullish on AI and AI augmentation, um, but there's some realistic barriers you have to overcome when it comes to this new way of working.
Yeah, because I look at it as in best case scenarios, it's that the cost per unit of intelligence has dropped dramatically. And so if we consider a token a unit of intelligence, then that's a fancy way of saying it, right? And that's best case scenario. That's what we're looking at. And worst case scenario, some days I look at it and I say, these damn LLMs are so disrespectful of my time. The amount of text they output just so that I can find this one little piece of actual information that I need is absurd.
Yep.
And so I think you do right to call out that you potentially can get this information overload, or you can be constantly pinged if you're not designing the system in the right way to
Yeah.
actually bring that value when you want it and in a way that is digestible.
100%. I mean, the you see two camps, right? You get the automate everything, AI is gonna take all the jobs away camp, and then you get the camp that's like, "These models are garbage," right?
Yeah.
And, AI is useless, and it's just a trick. It's a party trick. Like, I think the answer is in between. Um again, it all comes down to, can you exactly what you said, really guide the LLM to respond in the proper way and get the true value out of it, being careful of hallucinations, being careful of confirmation bias, and it just telling you what you wanna hear. So it all, careful prompting is key. Careful pipeline setup is key. But the big thing is, if you're not culturally willing to try it and just get started and try it, and you're not kind of building that in your company, you're going to be behind the eight ball because it is going to happen. The models are getting better. Um, and so you don't want to be left behind just because you're a naysayer. But at the same time, you run the risk of turning off the wider culture of your company. If you say, here's this amazing automation that I built, it's perfect, it does everything just right, and then it burns someone. Now they're permanently turned off to the idea of automation, and they get pushed into the latter camp of, AI is useless. So it is a careful balance to walk of like making sure, hey, this is the future. We're on the uptick though, right? Like there's gonna be the valley of disillusionment soon. Maybe we're entering it now. I don't know, in some regards, but when all the flaws get revealed, right? But eventually it's gonna peak back up, right? This is when the PC came out, people said, this is stupid. Like no one's gonna use it. When the internet came out, same thing, right? When the iPhone came out,
Yeah.
happens every time. So this is the most predictable thing in the world. Push through it, identify the flaws, be real with people about, hey, we're early adopters, but we need to do this now so that as this technology matures, and it's maturing faster than any other kind of game breaking technology has ever matured ever, we can be on the forefront of it and really catch the wave, at its best part. So
I like something you said there with respect to almost like we have to build the muscle, and maybe you put 10 workflows into the company and 9 of them are not good. But that one could be absolute fire that gives the so much time back to your workforce, and you wouldn't know that one. It's just like when you're testing out products and you're trying to go to market and you're figuring out, do we have product market fit here? It's that same idea. You gotta kind of throw spaghetti at the wall,
yes,
see if you like it, see if it works. If it doesn't take more time from you than you actually are putting into it, or it's not asking you to read a whole report every other call that the whole company is on, and so
yep,
you're like, "Oh, man." You have to think through these things, but you don't know that until you try it.
100% agree on that one because you run the risk of being scared, or
Yeah.
you run the risk of being bullish, right? Too bullish, and then you get in trouble real quickly. And I think what I would recommend and what I've been thinking about a lot is taking like the VC approach here, where you build quickly, you make lots of little investments, right? And with the hope that one really, really takes off. And like that's the one that you leverage then to then make more investments. And it's the same thing with building these automations is make a bunch of investments, small ones though, right? Like pick the low hanging fruit first, focus on those. And then once you get some wins, you'll learn a lot in the process. And then you can take that success and apply it somewhere else in even bigger investments, so to speak, with whatever you're building, automations, augmentations, doesn't matter. But again, the key is to actually just build the thing, right? You can just build
Yeah.
things now. The time to value is decreasing dramatically with things like Cursor, vibe coding, etc. And yeah, you just do it. Just do it. Adopt the Nike motto here and just do it because if you don't, you're going to be behind.
I love that philosophy, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some of your learnings as you've gone and vibe coded different investments, if we're staying on this VC theme,
Hmm.
and especially because I know that if you can get a very detailed PRD for what you're trying to create, you're 2 steps ahead in a way. And I also heard a friend of mine talking about how he likes to have a conversation and have the LLM ask him what he's trying to make and almost like suck information out of him, and then it will go and it will help him put together the PRD after it feels like it's asked sufficient amounts of questions. I wonder if you have any insights on how to create a better PRD so that when you do go to vibe coding something,
Yep.
you are set up for success.
Yes. I think the PRD is absolute key to anyone who's vibe coding, right, and trying to move quickly. Uh, you need some guardrails, especially like I found with Claude 3.7. Uh, if you don't keep that thing tightly focused, it can go and just make tons of different changes to make the best SaaS company or product in the world that you're not actually trying to build a SaaS product, but that's what it thinks
Yeah.
it knows. But anyways, with the PRD specifically, my typical flow is I'll start. Previously, like when I first started vibe coding, and it's ironic because that term is a more recent term, but I actually started doing that about a year ago, when Cursor was kind of first taking off. And I'd been doing the traditional thing. Like I tried to learn programming, never had time. We
Mhm.
just had our 10th kid. I don't have time for it. So
10th.
Cursor is, yeah,
It's
10 kids. Yeah.
1-0.
Yeah. 1-0, double digits.
Wow.
But I never had the time. I had the desire, never had the time to sit down and do like Code Academy and everything like that. Uh, and so you plop a blank text file in for me. I can program anything. Maybe I could get to Hello World on Python. Not sure. Um, but with something like Cursor, I quickly discovered, uh, again, someone like me, no experience in coding, no experience in software engineering. I was able to make things that worked, right? Like, and to me, I'm again big believer in the growth mindset. That made me just fundamentally curious of
Right.
what can I do? Like I'm too dumb and too inexperienced to know when to say no. Like, oh, that's not going to work. So I just try it, right? And that's led to me just learning organically quite a bit. And I know I've gotten off topic a bit about the PRDs, but I'll get there, I promise. Um, so I started with Cursor a year ago, not knowing anything, and the first thing I tried to build was a VS Code extension, similar to the Vibe Coder that I just made a couple weeks ago. It was kind of the same idea.
Yeah.
Can we
Maybe it's
build?
good to say, what was the vibe coder that you created real fast?
Yeah. So I tried to take that idea of what you're saying of like having the conversation in advance of actually sitting down and starting your vibe coding. So I integrated the vibe mode, right, where you can talk to a voice agent and just talk about an idea like you would if you're just talking to your friend about it. Generate a PRD automatically, and then kick over, and then implemented a dictation, with custom prompting within VS Code as a VS Code extension, so that you could quickly just dictate using Deepgram's, fastest, most accurate transcription. Of course, I'm heavily biased, obviously. Um, but then, you could plop that right into Cursor Composer or Windsurf, the Cascade, and just start vibe coding off the PRD you generated. So I had like the very first thing I started to build was a very early concept of that. Just like, can I use my voice to command VS Code? And so I was able to generate code with my voice, just telling it to do things. I could do various VS Code commands like, hey, unwrap, or open a new file and call it this, switch to this file, all with my voice. And it was really cool just to be able to see like, uh, again, I could actually make that.
Yeah.
And, I never dreamed of being able to do that because I just knew I was like, this is something I never prioritized early in my life. I could prioritize it, but just maybe when I'm older and have more time, the kids are older, I'll have time again. But now because of Cursor and Windsurf, and these AI models, like that's not the case anymore. Anyone can build anything. Um, and so fast forward, like I realized quickly again, the importance of the PRD. And big shout out to some Twitter personalities or X personalities like Riley Brown and McKay Wrigley. They were huge in just putting out resources. So that helped me kind of quickly as they were learning Cursor. It helped to see other people validate kind of like what my experience was, where if you don't generate kind of a plan, you can quickly get off the rails and increase your chance of hallucinations. But if you do this PRD ahead of time, then you have a much better chance of success. And so then my quickly developed kind of my standard flow is, well, before Vibe Coder, I would just open Composer, or now it's Agent, in Cursor, and just have that conversation typing it out. And I would say, very importantly, don't code yet.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about this, and then kind of bounce my idea. And then the nice thing is, again, I'd have this concept, but I wouldn't really know as not a professional software engineer at all. Uh, I have this concept and this idea, but I don't know the exact technical terms to describe it. But the nice thing is these models are smart enough where if you can point it in the right direction, it can guide you. And so that just kind of kickstarted my learning too, where now I learn, again, I can't just sit down and type and write code, but I can at least like look through a code base and understand it. I've been told at like a junior engineer level, despite no formal training. So,
Wow.
um, and that's just because I'm doing it. I'm just learning, debugging things. Cursor, again, it makes lots of mistakes. Like, but that's not the point, right? Like the point is if you approach it and you have good critical thinking and good ideas, you can, and you're curious, then you can go and actually go into the code base and figure things out and guide it a little bit better. Even if you don't know the exact syntax of what to type, you can at least guide the model to fix it for you. And so because of that, and because of this, new plan of developing PRDs, I've had a lot of success in building things. And I've actually built some customer facing demos that have led to won deals for us. Um,
No way.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know if I
Wow.
can talk specifics about them, but yeah, like I never thought I'd ever do that with my background. But Cursor and Windsurf, like this is no exaggeration, literally changed the course of my life and my career because of this capability it gave me. And again, you just have to be curious enough to do it. But then anyways, that led to me then having this idea of like, hey, vibe coder. That I love, catching on to that term. Like it's cool. It makes sense. I've been doing it before it was cool.
Yeah.
One could say, before the term was coined at least. And uh, so I decided to take that agent, right? I hate typing slow, especially if you're just trying to have a conversation. So it's like, let's take that, at least put that in an agent within your VS Code environment. And so now what it'll do is this extension, if you switch to vibe mode, you can talk to the agent, tell it your idea, it'll critique it. You can even, it's open source, so you can edit the prompt however you want, so go check out the GitHub repo, fool around with it, fork it, whatever you want to do. Um, but anyways, once you have that conversation, all you gotta do once you're satisfied is at the end just say, "Okay, based on our conversation, generate a PRD." And then it
Yeah.
actually will kick it out to a separate model that's a little more, a little smarter, like O3. And again, you can customize it. So you can use O3 Mini, you can use O1, whatever you wanna do, 3.7, doesn't matter. Um, and it'll generate the PRD for you automatically. And then from there, you can switch over to the dictation and say, all right, here's the PRD, get going. Um, and use your voice and dictate from there. So, again, the thing with Vibe Coder is this is just a preview though, right? Like this is how I think the world is going to be. Where voice computing, right? Like what's the voice OS? We're shoving voice into existing interfaces that are meant around screens, mouse, and keyboard. But I think all that's going to radically change. Like why do we need to be tied to a big display, right? With things like AR glasses coming out or smartwatches, things like that. Like, do you need a big display in front of you? Or can you talk to an agent that's running your computer remotely and you're just seeing like a little bit of crucial information displayed on your watch or on your glasses and you're just conversing from there. And that's true vibe coding, right? It's like
Yeah.
now you're out at the beach. You don't even have your computer. You just have a smartwatch or AR glasses and a smartphone or something. And you're completely untied from that. And it's beyond just dictation, right? So you see a lot of apps that are putting in dictation, which I think is a great step. But this is like the next step beyond just adding dictation to an existing interface. And no one's built that yet. I have ideas around it. I'm gonna fool around with it. But I think, again, to get back in this mentality of like things are moving so fast, the opportunities are massive. There's just so much green field out there that you just got to build things. Just build it, get it out there, ship it, get some feedback, drop the things that aren't successful, iterate from there.
What have been some gotchas as you were building?
Oh, yeah. Um, yeah, I think the biggest gotcha in Cursor, and at least for me personally, is the error loop. Where you're pushing your context window, and you run into an error, and you're like, "Hey, fix this. I gave you everything you needed. Like, fix this." And that's all you tell it to do, and then it'll fix it and say, "Oh yeah, everything's working great now." And then you test it, and now some new error pops up. You're like, "Well, that generated this error. Fix this." And like once you do that 3 or 4 times, you realize you'll get back to the original error.
Huh.
And so you can get into this endless loop if you're not like at a certain point, if you're designing more complex applications, like a lot of people criticize Cursor and say, "Oh, it's not going to be suitable for large actual applications and code bases." And I'm like, I disagree strongly. I think it will be. I've used it as such, and I've made some complex things beyond just a to do app or video games or a spinning hexagon with a ball in it, right? Like
Yeah.
I think you just have to be aware of it, right? And so you have to understand that true like vibe coding, like only by vibe, is only going to get you so far. Eventually, you do, I think, need to be able to get into the code base, but that doesn't mean you need to know exactly how to code. You just need to know how your code works. You need to be able to think critically and understand the flow. And that might be a controversial statement, um, but that's what's worked for me. And again, I I got my first ever PR request, PR actually in a production code base using Cursor. I did something to help the engineering team. It was very isolated. It was an experiment on our end, and it certainly could have gone better. And I learned a lot from it. Um, but like that was vibe coding something into a production database, right? And production code base. And apologize if I'm using the wrong terms here. Again, still learning. Uh, but it is possible. It is possible, and it's only getting better. And so again, I think if you are listening to this podcast and you haven't used Cursor and you haven't used Windsurf, use them. Try them. Use an open mind. Understand it's not going to be perfect. Don't expect perfection, but understand if you understand the limitations of the tool, you can use it very, very effectively. And there are lots of stories out there of people doing it on X, on LinkedIn and such. So, yeah, I think if you're not using that, you're going to be behind the eight ball. But if you do use it, you can speed up the tedious code development, and truly focus on the thorny problems that certainly people like me would never be able to solve. Right, that becomes the new moat for companies and software engineers.